To begin the presentation, press the Start Broadcast button on the GoToWebinar control panel to allow all attendees to hear you. This system will notify you once you begin your broadcast.
Hi everybody. Sorry for the slight delay in getting started. Thanks for your patience. Always a little strange giving a webinar. Don't really know if people are paying attention or have questions, so please use the chat function on your screen if you have a question, and I'll do my best to try to answer it. My name is Sam Ullery. I'm the School Garden Specialist here at the Office of the State Superintendent of Education, and really excited to be able to provide some funding again for the fourth grant cycle here under the Healthy Schools Act for school garden programs in Washington, D.C. Thank you all for joining, and really hope that can answer a lot of questions that folks have around the school garden grant. So I want to try to keep this as brief as possible and leave some time for questions at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. And if there are any technical problems, like the audio cuts out or you can't see something that I'm trying to show, please let me know through the chat box. That's the best way to communicate. So let's see here. Let's get started with the slideshow. I did put together a brief PowerPoint presentation that I hope will be helpful. And just a side note as well, this will be recorded. A version of this will be recorded. I'm doing one tomorrow as well, so we'll pick the best one and put it up on the website if you want to reference it and take a look at the PowerPoint. So as I mentioned, this is the 2015-2016 School Garden Grant Application Information Session, and as I did mention, this money is through the Healthy Schools Act. Many of you are familiar with that, and we are able to continue to do this, so we're super excited. So I wanted to put together just a timeline to get started so folks could understand. I know in the application the dates are a little bit all over the place. They're not in one place in the RFA. So I thought that this might be helpful to look at just to be able to see, where everything is happening. There is a little bit of confusion. I updated it yesterday with the application submission deadline. I know in one place in the RFA, there are 2 dates given in the RFA. So I just wanted to confirm that January 31st is the application submission deadline. And that has been cleared up, so it shouldn't be a problem. So this is when things are happening. There's only about 6 weeks left until the application is due. So hopefully people are well on their way, starting to think about what sort of project they would want to work on. The award period starts in March, and it's a 1-year period. Okay, move on here. So I just wanted to sort of break this brief presentation down into the sections that are already provided in the RFA. So if you do have the Word or the PDF document of that RFA, this sort of goes through that same structure so that you can kind of follow along. I'm not going to repeat a lot of things that are in the RFA because I'm assuming people have read that, but I just wanted to kind of highlight a few things that may be confusing and give an opportunity for folks to ask questions. So first off, just generally, I mentioned the Healthy Schools Act funding. There also is a DC Pay Physical Activity for Youth grant that also is available for schools and non-government organizations that is through our office. And we also have a farm field trip grant that teachers can apply for to send their students out to farms. So all those grants are available under the Healthy Schools Act. This grant, the DC School Garden Grant, really supports school gardens, but also farm-to-school programming. So recently, last year was the first year we really started to think about the school garden as including farm-to-school components as well. And thinking about the 3 different areas that we really want to see farm-to-school and school garden programming is happening in the classroom, in the garden, and in the cafeteria. So in your proposals, you'll really want to think about where you're going to, how you're going to impact those 3 areas of those 3 parts of the program: the classroom, the garden, and the cafeteria. And then lastly, just a note that while the nutrition education component of the School Garden grant is really highlighted and is important, we also know that there are many different other subjects that are included in the School Garden, and we definitely want to see those types of activities happen. So a lot of times people ask, well, we're going to be, we have a focus on science, or we have a focus on arts in our garden, and that's great. Definitely we fund those types of projects, but there needs to be a nutrition component as well. Okay, just about the award, the maximum amount is $15,000 per grant, and also important to note that this is a reimbursement grant. So what that means is that organizations or schools that are applying should have funds available to be able to cover the expenses of the grant. So when you submit, when there are payments made to organizations and schools, those are under the assumption that payment has already been made for the activities to happen. So if you're a part of an organization or a school that doesn't have enough funds to be reimbursed for the cost of the grant, you may want to think about applying for a smaller amount or looking for other organizations to partner with that can help in that capacity. Another unique thing about this grant is that it's for staffing, primarily for staffing. There's a requirement that 80% of it must be budgeted for staffing. We call that person a school garden coordinator, but it could also be for multiple people as well. So sometimes people like to include a stipend for teachers to be able to compensate for the extra time that they're taking to plan or implement garden lessons. So that can also be included in that 80%. Another thing that has changed from last year is that food is not an allowable cost. This is something that we have sort of let happen in the past because we weren't sure on the rule, but it's been sort of confirmed that we are not allowed to pay for food through Healthy Schools Act funding in general. So that's not something specific to this grant. Okay, so eligibility. I'm moving really quickly, so if folks have questions, please let me know. The eligibility, so there are DCPS schools and public charter schools are eligible, and in the application it says that those schools must be participating in the Healthy Schools Act. All DCPS and public charter schools are participating in the Healthy Schools Act, so if you don't know and you're a DCPS and public charter school, the answer is yes, you are participating and therefore you are eligible for the grant. Also, school garden and farm to school focused organizations are eligible to apply, and that is as long as they are applying on behalf of one school per grant application. This applies mostly to organizations. They must have a fiscal sponsor. They must have 501c3 status so that we can make reimbursement payments to them. And then just a side note, and this is a new thing from last year, a lot of DCPS schools have a hard time identifying a fiscal sponsor because their school does not have, say, a PTO or PTA with 501c3 status that can serve as the fiscal sponsor. So we've been in communication with the DCPS central office, and there's a contact email down below. They are willing to serve as the fiscal sponsor for DCPS schools that are looking for one. So I recommend that if you are in that category, reach out to Catherine Park, and she can help you with that process. Okay. Okay, so this is a lot of new stuff from previous years. The way that applications are being submitted in the past, they were emailed to me, and that worked in some regards, but we have a new system now that I think will be much easier for everybody to use. It's the Enterprise Grants Management System, or EGMS. This is, if you're familiar with it, this is what OSSI is now using for all of their grants. So you will be submitting your School Garden grant application using the EGMS system. For those of you that haven't seen the homepage or aren't familiar with this, I'll give you a quick glance at it here. So this is what the homepage looks like. Let me see here. Oh, it's not doing it for me. Hopefully you can see the home page there, where this is the way what you see the portal, and then if you don't have a login credentials, you see a section there for new users. You would click on that and follow the prompts to set up yourself as a new user. Let me go back to the. Whoops, sorry about that. Lost us here. Oh no. Okay. So again, you must submit through the EGMS portal. Please don't email it to me because it will get lost in email space. And you also, if you are registering as a new user, make sure you have your tax ID number. It says it takes 48 hours to create new user IDs, login credentials, so make sure you have that. There are a lot of resources if you are new to EGMS, which everybody is, or you just want to make sure that you're doing things correctly. You can always email me if you have questions, but there are some training videos and a user's manual which are pretty helpful in terms of using the system. But I think it's pretty straightforward, and just hit save all the time on that thing, because it will, like most online portals, it'll kick you out if you don't hit save often. There'll be a little bit more about EGMS, but I want to move on to just how these applications are scored and reviewed. So just like most competitive grants in government, we have an external and internal review panel which will review the applications and score it. The scoring rubric is provided in the RFA, and you can see how it's broken down by 4 categories, all pretty evenly broken down. So we do look at things like geographic preference and free reduced lunch and equal distribution between DCPS and charter schools. So at the end of the day, the review panel may say one thing. We may have to slightly modify it to make it equitable. The final award decision does rest with OSSI, but we really do mostly stick with what the review panel says. And what I recommend, one of the things I recommend, and one of the things that I see is just really great ideas and great projects, but poorly written proposals. And so one of the things I would recommend folks do if they're not a grant writer and could use a little practice is to visit the Office of Grants Management webpage. They have a lot of training videos and trainings available for folks just to help you with some basics of grant writing. That is really important. Okay, so again, in terms of the award administration, the grants will be monitored through the EGMS site. Oh, sorry, I misspoke. Grants will be monitored through the EGMS site, but also through in-person site visits, which I will most likely be conducting at least once a grant cycle, hopefully twice. And then there also is a mid-project and end-project report that is required. And in those reports, we ask for we have a pre and post survey for students and teachers to conduct, as well as sort of more typical narrative questions like how is the progress on your grant and what challenges are you facing. All the invoicing will be done through the EGMS system. You'll be able to see if you have credentials, what you're spending. You'll be able to track your payments. It'll be much more transparent than it has been in the past. And then just a few tips on completing your application. These are pretty basic, but recommend writing it out in your Microsoft Word or in a Word document using the PDF version of the RFA that's already available, and then just pasting it into EGMS. That's pretty straightforward. I think everybody knows to do that. I already mentioned just saving often in EGMS is very important. There should be a save button at the bottom of each page. Obviously, start early. Most applications that are written in the last minute, you can tell that they're quickly put together. This is competitive. The grant process is pretty competitive. We usually get between 50 and 60 applications and award about 20 to 25. So make sure that you're putting your best foot forward. And obviously, you're going to want to, we provide a lot of information up front for you. Use the scoring rubrics. We tell you, how we're going to be scoring the applications. So just make sure you're referencing back to those when you're writing your narratives and your responses. So all pretty straightforward stuff. We don't have a preference for new gardens versus existing garden programs. high schools or middle schools or elementary schools. We sort of look at all those equally. And I think what we really want to look for is that the program is being implemented during the school day. So while I know that a lot of folks have after-school programs and we want to support that, what we're really looking for is how are students and teachers being impacted by your garden program. So we want to see standards-based lessons being taught using the garden and in the classroom and in the cafeteria. So that's really what we're looking for, where our focus is, and just wanted to kind of end the presentation with an opportunity for folks to ask any questions that they might have. And just as a preference on the questions, we will have an FAQ page available that any questions that are asked before the question period deadline, which is January 17th, you can email me any questions that you have. I'll make sure to post those on the FAQ page for folks, for everyone to see. Okay, any questions at all? Give like another minute or two for folks to type those in. Let's see here. Okay, we have a question. Do you have to partner with an organization? Yes. The answer to that is yes. It is a requirement that there is a partnership with an outside organization. And the reason for that is that there are so many organizations in DC that are working in school gardens and farm to school, and they really have a lot of the expertise that is required, and also gardens are a lot of work. So we have seen that the most successful projects involve a partner or partners that are helping with the garden. And those partnerships look different from school to school. Sometimes the organization is acting like a contractor and they're coming in and they're actually teaching some of the lessons. Some of the organizations are providing the professional development for the teachers. Some of the organizations are providing field trips. So it really is all over the board. And we have a list of partner organizations and a short description of what they do and how they're able to support school gardens. So I recommend that you take a look at that on the Aussie School Garden Grant page, which is at the bottom of the screen. But that's a great question. I'll give another minute if anyone has another question, and then I will end the webinar. And just as a last parting note, a reminder that just a clarification, I guess, that the application will be available for submission on the EGMS site on Friday. That's when it will go onto the EGMS site. However, it is available as a PDF version. If you go to the EGMS site, there'll be a link that'll take you to the PDF version, so you can begin to look through that. Okay, here's another question. Sorry, my screen is very small for some reason for this. So the question is, are there specific limits to purchase things like materials, like plants, seeds, supplies? The limit would be 20% of the grant amount, because it is required that 80% of the grant amount you be used for staffing. So the limit would be 20% of the total grant amount for any materials, and that also includes any field trips that you take, anything that's non-staffing, that all would be 20%. And the reason for that is that we know that there's a lot of grants out there, things like a Home Depot grant or Whole Kids Foundation grant or Annie's grant or Ace Hardware grants, all these grants that fund materials, that provide materials. Also, their materials are sometimes easy to get donated and sometimes cannot cost a whole lot. We also see that if you have a staff person, they're able to dedicate some time, and you can think about this for your grant, for writing those smaller grants to procure some of those materials. So think creatively about how to get some of the materials as well. But that's a great question. Okay. So I think that I'm going to end the webinar now because we don't have any more questions. But if you do think of something, then please feel free to email me, call me, come visit me at Aussie, and I'm happy to talk these through. Have me come out to your school, and happy to talk more about this with you. So good luck with your application, everybody. And as I mentioned, this will be recorded, or tomorrow I'll record it if I do a better job tomorrow and put it up on the website. Okay, so good luck everybody, and have a great day.